This story is written by Sessions X Podcast. Link below. Enjoy the story. Matthew Cross was walking home with his little brother around dusk. They were both walking their bikes after a few hours of playing with some friends. Nick Cross, the little brother, told police they heard something in the bushes behind the tree line beside the road. Matthew left his bike and went to see what it was. Nick said his brother liked animals. He would always go after them. Matthew went into the forest, just past the bush. He never came out again. But Matthew wasn't the first boy to disappear from our town. In the late summer of 1939, 4 boys went missing, the most notorious of whom was Jason Wheeling, because he was taken not from the road, but from his room, while his entire family was home. That was also around the same time that people reported sightings of a woman who later became known around town as the Witch. My grandfather didn't talk about it, but he knew one of those boys. A week or two after Matthew's disappearance was about the time my father told me about my grandfather's journal. This is what he wrote. January 12th, 1972. Dr. Epstein, my analyst, wants me to write about Pete. What happened to Pete affected me in a way I'll never be able to describe in these journals. But his death is not the reason I haven't recovered. The thing Norma and Dr. Epstein don't know is that everything from my insomnia to the depression and bouts of drinking have all stemmed from a single night, after Peter's death. Pete went missing in August, and no one ever saw him again. No one but me. I remember it was autumn. Leaves had already changed colours and they littered the street as the trees began to die. We weren't allowed outside past 4. The whole town was in a frenzy. Police searched every ditch and bush for the newest missing boy, Johnny, who was taken while camping in the woods with his scout troop. Every night I would see flashlights combing the woods behind our house. I had been questioned a few times regarding what happened to Pete, but all I knew was that the last time I saw my friend, he was fine. He waved goodbye and smiled as he half ran along the dirt road, heading home. I watched from my first floor bedroom window as the police looked through the woods, hoping they would find a clue. One day, they did. But it wasn't a clue. It was Pete. His body. He wasn't in the woods. He was in the house. They could never figure out how he died. The funeral home stunk of flowers, all different kinds. I liked the pictures they put up of him. It made me feel like he had been a real person, not just the boy who died. I also liked to see that I was in some of those pictures. It made me feel real too. People were crying in every corner of the room, though some just stood there awkwardly. Others talked in whispers. My friends were there, but their parents wouldn't let us talk to each other because we would be too loud. Finally, I went into the showing room. I had never seen a dead body before. Pete was dressed in a grey suit. It was strange to see him like that. He never wore a suit before. It felt wrong to put him in one now. When I went up to the coffin and knelt to pray, I looked up to him. I could tell he was not there anymore. His body looked like a shell, and he looked smaller than he really was. That day I truly believed in people having souls. Whatever it was that made Pete Pete had gone from him. The night of the funeral I was woken by a tapping at my window. When I first woke up, I wasn't sure I had heard it or if I had dreamt it. Then it came again. There was a full moon outside which lit the curtains behind my window enough for me to see a shape. I thought it was one of my friends, either Carl or Lucas. I stood up and moved to him. He was still wearing the suit. The curtain made it hard to see any detail, but I could tell it was him. And I could see the white of his teeth. He was smiling. I wasn't sure if I was awake or dreaming, so I just stood there, too scared to get close. Then, Pete left the window. He just walked away. Again, all I could do was stand there. The dishes fell in the kitchen. I assumed he crawled in the open window over the sink. I pushed my ears to my door and just listened. I felt awful and ashamed. My parents were out there. I could hear him moving around just outside my door. I gripped the knob so tight. I had never been so afraid in my life. After the sounds died down, I got the courage to go out there. I found the dishes on the floor in the kitchen, but nothing else. No dirty footsteps, no foul odours. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was. Either option was terrifying. Around that time was when people started saying they saw the witch. There was a couple from our high school who went to the woods to make out. It wasn't far from the old house. As they started kissing, they said they saw a woman. They ran and never looked back. The kids all asked why they were so scared of her. The boy just said they ran because the woman looked crazy. But the girl told her friends they ran because the woman wasn't human. The police questioned them. Now that there was missing boys and one dead one, the police were asking about everything. The boy who was taken from his home, Jason Wheeling, his little sister said he went into the bathroom and never came out. I could never make sense of it. I still can't, but it clicked a little years later. My buddy grew up to be a cop here, and one day we talked about Pete and the others. I asked if they found anything at the witch house, which was what everyone had started calling it. He said it was mostly just empty, but upstairs there was a bedroom where a very small bed had 4 old cuts of rope tied to each post, and in one of the drawers was a child's drawing. He didn't describe it, only mentioned that it was a little creepy looking, and that at the bottom there was some text. It was misspelled and hard to read, but he was pretty certain it said, "Don't look in the mirror."